On 3 fronts, excluding the east, the world-destroying dragon Ivor's 3 servants were defeated. It happened at almost the exact same time, as if calculated. Most of those who were aware of the situation thought the same thing. Only Ivor remains. However, reality was not that forgiving. Let us go back in time a little. Inside the great hall of the Heavenward Tower, massive shockwaves were repeatedly released. It was the impact caused by the battle between Milum and Ivor. Due to this, the subsequent waves of cryptids advancing toward the ground were annihilated one after another, leaving not even dust behind. It went exactly according to Milum's strategy. She intended to defeat the remaining enemies while minimizing the damage to the surface. This plan proved successful. The only enemy remaining inside the Heavenward Tower was the world-destroying dragon Ivor. However, from this point on, things went beyond expectations. Milum and Ivor appeared to be fighting an evenly matched battle, or so it seemed. But a discerning observer would have realized that a great disparity existed between them. Just like Kloe did. This is bad. Milum's current power is unimaginable, but it's not on the level of a stampede. At this rate, she's going to be overpowered. Kloe worried about this, and her anxiety proved correct. Kayaha. Although Ivor had grown to the physique of an adult woman, her behavior had not changed. She seemed to be innocently enjoying the fight without a shred of desperation or even a greed for victory, as she continued to exchange blows with Milum. Fighting is fun. At first, there was a gap in their skill levels, but Ivor did not fear, flinch, or retreat even when hit. She constantly moved forward and had begun to adapt to Milum's attacks. Mew. I get a feeling this is bad if it keeps up. Milum, like Kloe, had instinctively sensed it. The current Milum was clad in full jet black armor. With a beautiful crimson horn growing from her forehead, she had exposed her true form as a dragonoid. However, she had not summoned a Sur. She was engaging in a fist fight with her bare hands. Against a normal opponent, Milum could defeat them with ease if she got serious. However, it seemed Ivor was not a soft opponent that could be suppressed with fists alone. No, far from it. Why hadn't Milum drawn her sword? Kloe wondered this, but she vaguely sensed the reason. It was because Ivor was too ominous. Ivor's growth rate was so abnormal that Milum judged it uncertain whether she could destroy her even using a Sur. That wasn't all. Mew. That thing's appearance resembles me. It likely stole my mother's body. Because she had sensed that, she hesitated to point her sword at it. But this was no longer the time to be saying such things. It can't be helped. From here on, I'm getting serious. Saying so, Milum summoned a Sur and took her stance. Seeing this, Ivor rejoiced. A different game. Kayaha. I'm looking forward to it. Laughing like that, and after pondering for a moment, Ivor also took something out. It was a single beautiful rapier. It was a white-bladed sword that emitted a divine light, sized perfectly for a woman to hold. Genesis class. Charity, that was the name of the sword. That is. Milum braced herself. The aura the sword released was on par with her own as Sur. In other words, her advantage in weaponry was lost. Kloe asked Milum. Are you okay? I think I can only serve as a distraction, but should I assist? Milum refused. No, there's no need. Just as planned, you are to watch until the very end. That was the strategy they had agreed upon at the start. Time stopping was useless, so it was completely unnecessary. It had been decided that Kloe's trump card, the authority to recall memories of the future, Time Leap, would not be activated until she witnessed the conclusion. Even for Kloe, who prioritized efficiency, she agreed with that policy. For Kloe, who had repeated the cycle of time for what seemed like eternity, the time spent waiting to witness the conclusion of Milum's total defeat was not painful. Thus, the current Kloe was nothing more than a witness. However, since Kloe was completely exhausted from dealing with Milum during her stampede, there was also the aspect that she was trying to recover her energy in this situation. Knowing this, Milum had turned down Kloe's offer. And so, the beautiful woman and the beautiful young girl, both with flowing platinum pink hair, faced off with swords at the ready. The first move was Milum's. Imbuing her will to kill with a swift strike, she slashed at Ivor. Unable to react to this, a large wound gaped open from Ivor's right shoulder down to her left flank. What spilled out was not blood, but darkness. Dense magicules became a darkness that filled the field of vision, gushing out like blood. However, that converged in less than a second. The magicules were sucked back into the wound, and it returned to its original state as if nothing had happened. Kayaha. Is this what pain felt like? Ivor asked, looking as though she felt no pain at all. Since she had no obligation to answer, Milum ignored it and entered a stance for continuous attacks. Although Milum's swordsmanship was self-taught, her outstanding combat sense put her skill level above even top-class swordsmen. Even in a contest of pure swordsmanship, she surpassed King Gazelle and Hinata, and was capable of fighting on equal footing with Hakuya. However, her lineage was that of the Sword of Power. Rather than softly parrying her opponent's blade, her technique was to powerfully deflect it to break their stance, crushing the enemy. Deborah's style also possessed techniques of power, but Milum's combat style appeared to be a specialized evolution of them. Her opponent, Ivor, was naturally an amateur. Everything it saw and heard was fresh, and it was enjoying the battle with Milum. It felt neither surprise nor fear from the blow it had just taken. There was only pure curiosity. It was even observing its own injuries with delight. The reason was simple. Since it did not even know the concept of death, it had no reason to feel fear. Even before that, to Ivor, this level of damage amounted to nothing more than a mosquito bite. This is tough. It seems so. Milum grumbled with a grim expression, and Kloe nodded gravely. Against Ivor, a clearly abnormal existence, they had to admit that conventional methods would be difficult to employ. That said, Milum's authority, the ultimate skill wrathful King Satinel, was difficult to control safely. Activating it meant going on a rampage. Strictly speaking, she was being constantly strengthened by it, but compared to operating the authority at full capacity, the effect was trivial. There is no doubt that Milum is one of the pinnacles of power in this world. Yet, against Ivor, she was clearly at a disadvantage. The clash of swords continued. The two crossed blades violently for a short while. Milum was steadily being pushed back. I can't believe it. This guy, it's getting stronger by the second. It was no wonder Milum was astonished. Unlike when Milum went into a stampede, it wasn't that Ivor's base power was increasing. Its absolute amount of energy was so overwhelming that such an increase wasn't even necessary. Ivor was adjusting its power to match Milum's. It seemed to consider even that a form of play. Realizing this, Milum became impatient. As a result, her sword was deflected. Kayaha. Ivor swung Charity down toward the unarmed Milum. It was a desperate situation, but Kloe cut in. I won't let you. Kloe skillfully deflected Ivor's sword. There was no resistance. It was Kloe who was caught off guard. Ivor had let go of the sword voluntarily. Kloe had caught the blade and knocked it upward. In contrast, because Ivor didn't cling to the weapon, its hands were now free. And then began the rush. Ivor's left and right fists were driven into the defenseless Kloe. Kai-ha-ha-ha-ha. Taking enough damage to instantly incapacitate her, Kloe was sent flying. Tisk, I can't believe it. It seems my belief that losing your weapon on the battlefield means death was just a preconception. No, Kloe's reasoning wasn't wrong, but common sense simply didn't apply to Ivor. Against Ivor, who was unbound by conventional fighting styles, one had to assume every possibility. Unable to move, Kloe hesitated over whether to activate Time Leap. But in that instant, her eyes met Milum's. Milum hadn't given up yet. She lunged at Ivor as it closed in on Kloe, dragging it back into a brawl. You're right. This isn't a fatal wound yet. I'll stick with you to the end. Changing her mind, Kloe used her sword as a prop to pull herself up. Thanks to Milum, there are no reinforcements from the cryptids. The heroes are dealing with the remaining forces. It was a terrifying legion where even the weakest individual was equivalent to a demon lord seed, but fortunately, they were hardly coordinating. They have also been weakened by the benefits of the Holy Field, so the battle situation is stable, with the tactic of defeating them individually. Abera, an expert on the cryptids, cooperated with Benimaru and provided information, which further refined their tactics. Abera herself was taking the initiative in command, ignoring the exhaustion of her energy and stamina. Thanks to her efforts, the atmosphere suggested that victory was within their grasp. We have Luminous's healing as well. Do you think we can win just like this? No, we shouldn't let our guard down yet. We've left the enemy boss entirely to Lady Milum. Depending on the outcome of that fight, everything could be turned upside down. Benimaru denied Hinata's remark, which she made upon sensing their advantage, in a reproving manner. One never knows the outcome of a battle until the very end. This was etched into Benimaru's mind. Even if victory seems certain situationally, hubris leads to negligence. Hinata also accepted this opinion. That's true. Hearing about Remuer's return, I seem to have relaxed a bit. Ashamed of herself, she tightened her focus once more. Even so, there were reports of success in subjugating the leaders of the cryptids. If they defeated the final enemy with this momentum, it would be a victory for humanity. It was understandable that Hinata let out a sigh of relief. Just like Hinata, most of them were inundated with bright news. Excited by this, and rousing themselves to end the war right then and there. The Heaven's Tower shook with the greatest impact of the day. Within the rising dust, a figure slowly walked out. Everyone tried to discern its identity, but instinctively, they knew. A fierce chill and the worst premonition. And they were right. Kayaha. The first thing visible was platinum pink hair, but it wasn't in twin tails. It was straight, spreading out in the wind. That figure, which looked like a grown-up version of Milum, was the human form acquired by the world-destroying dragon Ivor. As I thought, it wasn't going to end smoothly, Hinata muttered. Luminous, having descended next to her, spat out the words bitterly. Milum is alive, but she appears to be considerably exhausted. That damage. Injuries aside, even my magic cannot heal it. Everyone capable of grasping the situation, not just Hinata, thought so too. Milum's energy was nearly depleted, and she was on the verge of fainting. Unless she was replenished, there would be no recovery. And the problem was that there existed no replenishment method capable of filling someone boasting as much magical energy as Milum. In other words, Milum was effectively out of the battle at this point. Furthermore, Kloe was nowhere to be seen, her fate unknown. Then, it is my turn. Valdora, having defeated Kakishi, had sensed a presence and returned to the eastern sector. He was full of confidence against Ivor. He had defeated Milum, but naturally, Benimaru could not give permission. Please wait, Lord Valdora. If Lady Milum has been defeated, I do not believe this is an opponent to challenge one-on-one. Isn't that cowardly? No, it is not. Winning is justice. Benimaru declared. He asserted it. Indeed. This was not a brawl, but a war. A battle staking the survival of humanity. If they lost, everything would end, so this was no time to be picky about methods. To effectively use the time Milum bought them, the correct answer was to attack all at once with their remaining forces. That is correct, Lord Valdora. If there are casualties, Lord Rimuru will be sad. Tensura agreed with Benimaru's opinion. Rescue Milum first, then defeat Ivor to end it. That was Tensura's opinion. Hinata mostly agreed with this as well. Having just sworn not to let her guard down, she was wary, knowing she should be careful not to blunder at the very end. Valgrind spoke. In the first place, I nearly died from a single blow by Ivor, you know. I don't think you can win if you charge in alone, you fool. Although she had recovered significantly by integrating her other avatars, Valgrind was still not in top form. As someone who had experienced Ivor's danger firsthand, her advice to her younger brother was harsh. Here, Luminous jumped in too. Personally, I think it would be fine for Valdora to learn a painful lesson. However, losing valuable fighting strength is a foolish move, so I shall give you a piece of advice. Stop it. She was even more scathing than Valgrind. Valdora groaned at this but accepted it. That was because he himself was secretly a little worried, thinking, maybe I might lose. If that is the case, then I am not unwilling to join forces with everyone. Valdora concluded brightly. Everyone nodded at this. Carrion and the others, who had been listening, did not object. Tisk, against a monster like that, we can't be nitpicking. Indeed. If we don't win first, there is no future. Leave Lady Milum's rescue to me. I'll help too. Carrion and Free stated their respective intentions in this manner. Accepting this, Benimaru formulated a plan. As if in response, the raid battle against the world-destroying dragon Ivor was about to begin, but